Last year, while on holiday, I spent a couple of days in the company of a very pleasant man whose job it is to organise climate change conferences for the UN. Now, it's a wonder that he found any time at all in his busy year for a holiday, because he spent most of it jetting around the world. Now, listening to all the exotic locations that he's been to made me slightly envious, and I did think, well, there are worse jobs. Plumbing, for example. Now, it also struck me that these climate change conferences are very big business, and a lot of people's mortgages depend upon it. Every time the concerned and influential people meet up to discuss how us plebs can cut our carbon footprint by walking to work and going on holiday to Skegness, it means that millions and millions of dollars are changing hands. Now, we all remember the unedifying spectacle of President Biden arriving in Glasgow with his spare aeroplane and his motorcade of bulletproof cars and his security men. That is one hell of a carbon footprint, but that is only the tip of a very large melting iceberg, because long before they arrive, there are people coming into Glasgow checking out all the details to make sure that they're suitable for all these delegates. They send in experts to test the hotel beds, sample the catering, have a look at the transport infrastructure, and check out the general security of the area. Now, the last COP28 was held in Dubai, and it was considered to be a resounding success because 84,000 people attended it. Now, when you think of 84,000 people, that's just about what Manchester United Stadium would take, but it's not quite enough to fill Wembley. But who knows, next year they may reach that magic 100,000 mark. And when you take into account all the hangers-on and all the other flunkies that have to attend these people, 100,000 is probably a low figure. Now, if you just imagine taking every person in Wembley Stadium on holiday for 10 days, jetting them out somewhere, accommodating them in hotels, feeding them, then my description of this as a very big business is probably an understatement. It's huge. But of course, that analogy is slightly misleading, because attending a COP is nothing like going to the COP or attending any other football event. In other words, they don't all sit down at once and cheer and boo and throw insults at the delegates. They actually just drift in and out of small meetings. They cherry pick the meetings that they want to go to, and they plug in those sanitized earbuds so that they can hear a translation. And then, if they've got any sense, they slide away and find themselves a nice sun lounger by the pool, where of course they continue to network with like-minded people who are also very concerned about the climate and the planet. And of course, the one thing you notice about the word networking is that it contains the word work. And it means that a day on the sun lounger qualifies as a day in the office. But of course, what you don't realise is that these people are working very, very hard, because not only do they have to do those conferences, they also have to go to evening functions where they have to drink cocktails and talk to other people and exchange business cards and generally be seen to be seen, if you like. But of course, it's not just the conferences. There is also this sideshow of exhibitions that have grown around the conference, selling everything from wind turbines to solar farms to heat pumps to little plastic things that bob around in the ocean that nobody really understands. But rest assured, they are dolphin friendly. But you know, some of the old school delegates, the people who have been attending these conferences for the last 20 years, see all this commercial activity as a distraction from the main event, which is obviously to save the planet. But there are others who consider it to be a success, mainly the organisers who are selling all those exhibition stands, who consider that having more and more people coming to these events is a measure that they are succeeding. And although you might think that I'm trivialising these events, you've got to remember that hundreds and hundreds of interested parties are signing non-binding agreements to up their game, and of course scheduling next year's meeting so that they can all meet again and see just how much they have actually upped their game. At some point they will give a big up to next year's venue. We'll see lovely footage of beautiful hotels and the exotic location, and people will make a note in their diary, who wouldn't? But of course this year it's been slightly different because there's been a little bit of a hiccup over this, because the UN is a democratic organisation, even though half the members don't even understand the word democracy, and that means that everybody gets a fair share. So the COP29 is supposed to be in Eastern Europe, but of course they're having great difficulty, obviously because of the war in Ukraine and other factors, finding a venue that is suitable, because don't forget, you need a venue that's going to house 100,000 people, jet them in, feed them, accommodate them and so on, and that's not always easy. Now there are of course a few venues in Eastern Europe which may be suitable, but I think they've arrived at a bit of a fudge, in as much as they're going to give the hosting function to one of those Eastern European countries, but they're actually going to hold the conference somewhere else. And it seems very likely that it's going to be in Bonn, which has the hotels, but it has a distinct shortage of sun loungers, because we know what Germans are like with sun loungers. But the UN not only have that secretariat in Bonn, they also have hubs around the world tackling climate change. And there are people working in those offices, hopefully cooled by eco-friendly solar panels, and also heated, if need be, by some equally carbon-friendly means, such as heat pumps. And also, no doubt, they cycle to work. Now, of course, there are those with an ecological bent who might see all this as slightly hypocritical. I mean, how dare they stand there pontificating, telling the rest of us how to cut our carbon emissions by going on holiday to Skegness while all the time they're jetting around the world. Why can't they just hook up on Zoom or Teams like we used to back in the good old days when we had the pandemic? Remember that? Now, this view is based on ignorance. Obviously, the plebs don't understand that in order to thrash out these deals, you've got to meet your opponents eye to eye. So make no mistake, thrashing out these deals is thirsty work. And it also makes you hungry. And you also need a comfortable bed in a 5-star hotel so that you can recuperate and arrive really fresh and reinvigorated for another grueling day at the coalface. Except, of course, there are no coalfaces. Well, maybe China and a few in Germany, but of course you never mention coalfaces in Germany. I mentioned it once, but I think I got away with it. So if it does turn out to be Germany, then bon voyage to all those delegates who will turn up next year. And you know what? I might even turn up with a camera and see what mischief we can make. Wouldn't that be fun? And just before I leave you, or you leave me, to be more accurate, don't forget to sign up to our newsletter. It will give you information about all the upcoming videos and also a lot of other news and details and giveaways and fun. Join the happy throng.